How to ensure proper pay for creators while developing the digital single market? That is the question. Still in search of the answer, and with the draft EU directive on collective management in mind, the EUobserver brought over 200 experts from the creative industries in Europe to the Musical Instruments Museum in Brussels for the 6th time.
I know we are in Brussels and you have a lot of problems to solve, but I have the problem to solve paying my bills. And I know there are hundreds and thousands of authors all over Europe who have the same problem.
If we want to ensure that artists get their money and they get fair payment, we always have to look also into contract law. The Collecting Societies regulation will not be enough to look for. We have to go to contract law, and I think since artists are doing a cross-border job more or less per se, we should have kind of European contract for artists. This would improve the situation even more than the whole Collecting Societies regulation.
Collecting societies serve a very important function. Some of them could be better run, some of them could be more transparent. It's an imperfect system. But I think it's important to say that it's a system we need. It's hard to think of a better system. Even though this could be corrected and improved, it would be a shame to throw it out because all of a sudden someone decided we don't need to pay artists.
Today's heroes in Europe would be poets and composers and artists because they make our lives so much more beautiful. So they really need to have a fair remuneration and not too late. What this proposal actually means is that we could still have this delay of their payments. I find that unacceptable.
The first problem we have for having the authors paid is that we have to collect the rights, and sometimes it's quite difficult to negotiate a good contract with all the users. So once we have collected the money, the second question is whether we can succeed to have the playlist of all they are using. Sometimes it's quite easy and it's of a very good quality, sometimes it's quite difficult, and we have to run after the information for being able to distribute the money.
First of all, we have to break up the delay in licensing, which is due to too many entities in the market, and the second point is about adequate tariffs, but this is not regulated in the directive, in the proposal, which is fairly working in all national markets.
We would like to bring users and collective rights management closer together so that all kinds of users, either legal, illegal, those paying online or those streaming, feel concerned about authors' rights and contribute to the remuneration of artists.
So as to guarantee the authors the remuneration, there should be a possibility to use a work. There should be the licensing possibility. And for this, collective rights management organization played a crucial role. And we as broadcasters, we have a very long-lasting relationship with the collecting societies on licensing of musical works for broadcasting. And we believe this should continue in online world as well.
D'une part, le moyen d'assurer non seulement la rémunération, mais la protection.
Well, I think we need to ensure not just proper remuneration, but also the protection of artists, like social protection and legal protection. We need to make sure that artists and creators have a democratic system that works.
Démocratique au sein des sociétés de gestion collective.
Also, as the second part of the directive is dedicated to online music, we need to open up the possibilities for new services and permit a bigger diffusion of online music. Europe needs to resist the influence of Anglo-American music and create real diversity here, so that we can offer real cultural diversity to European citizens.
Résister à la musique anglo-américaine et d'avoir une véritable diversité, d'offrir une véritable diversité culturelle aux citoyens européens.
I believe that everything can be put into place to make sure that our authors and composers, creators actually get their fair share. Only if each and every body at stake is actually being transparent. So I believe that this directive is what it is actually achieving is a starting point.
People talk about the single digital market, and the internet was always supposed to empower artists, give artists the ability to go directly to consumers and help free them from their dependence on labels and some of those deals that have historically been pretty bad. What the internet's turned into is it's not much of a market at all. Paying has become optional, and that's really driven prices down. There's a lot of things involved in that. Some can be easily fixed, some can't. Some can be fixed by this directive, some can't be. But I think this goes away towards fixing some of the inefficiencies in the market and the problems with the market without undercutting what makes it a market.
So the EUobserver has brought together a great list of speakers today to thrash out a really important debate, which is essentially how are we going to get the transaction costs or the hassle costs of licensing music in Europe down. There are many ways we can look at transaction costs. There are many problems with music licensing, but where we can try and solve them collaboratively is going to be good for songwriters and good for music services online in the single market of Europe.
It's such a pleasure to go to a conference that's about how to pay artists instead of whether we need to pay artists. And I said that, it was sort of a joke and people laughed, but it's actually, hey, it's pretty serious. There's a lot of disagreement over what the best price is, what the best market mechanism is, and that can be frustrating, but I see it as a sign of progress. When someone doesn't want to pay me because they don't think I have rights, that's a loud argument. It's a lot of fun to shout at people, but it's a big problem. When we're arguing about how much I should get paid and how to make that work, that's not as much fun. It's more complicated. There's less shouting. There's less newspaper coverage, but that's a sign of progress because we're having an argument toward an endpoint that arrives at a deal. That deal is never going to completely satisfy both sides. It's never going to be quick enough, but I think it's going to be generally pretty good, which is a lot better than what we have now.
The clear underlying message that we heard in Brussels today was that there has to be a fair regulation for all rights holders out there. We don't want to continue with a situation where we have two classes of citizens in Europe, those who are rich and famous and successful already, and those who are struggling to make a living out of their music, trying to get some cash for what they do. And unfortunately, we have a situation today where an initiative taken by the European Commission back in 2005 really messed up the situation in Europe, and as a result we've got preferential treatment for the Anglo-American repertoire and those who control it, and that's something which this directive, as far as I can see, isn't really going to tackle. And that's the big political question behind what's going on here today. This debate here today is how do we produce a fair market in Europe, fair remuneration for all, and not just for those who are successful.